Welcome everyone who's just joined for our webinar today, Skill Up with AI, the ultimate HR toolkit. We're super excited to talk to you guys today. And I just wanted to do a quick intro and tell you guys that we're doing a Q&A. So if you have any questions, definitely let us know in the Q&A button at the bottom. We're going to be raffling off a $50 gift card at the end for Q&A participants. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to our hosts for today, which are Kate and John.
Thank
Hello,
you,
everyone.
Evelyn. Awesome. So just for a quick introduction for who you are talking to today. So my name is Kate Bernier, and I am one of the co-founders and COO of Airbo. I've been in the benefits engagement space for, the past 12 years now, and I've worked with hundreds of companies, honestly, maybe thousands at this point, to figure out, okay, how can we help companies educate employees about benefits and make the benefits communication and education space easier. And I'm really excited to be joined by John Stenstrom today, who is our head of product. So John, I'll pass it over to you for a quick intro.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Stenstrom. I've been in the AI space, startup space since 2013. And over the last 6 months, have been really pushing for bringing some of these cool, awesome AI technologies into Airbo to make your lives easier. So I'm here to, I'm just excited. I love AI. So let's just get started. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So just like to kind of get us set up. So today we are going to be talking about how you can use AI in the HR space. But we want to just briefly, like before we get into that, we want to just briefly talk about the HR ecosystem. And so, really like this is how employees experience the HR ecosystem today. There is a lot of places for them to go. There's a lot of things that are intertwined, a lot of apps they have to download. The payroll system might be different than the Ben admin system. And so the HR ecosystem has just gotten very, very complicated over the past many years. And there really just isn't one like system that solves all problems. And so what we offer at Airbo is we give you the power to give employees more support on this front with dramatically less work. So essentially, our goal is to help HR and benefits teams reclaim the hours that you spend navigating employees around to all of these systems, these policies, these benefits, and really give you the time to time back to spend on what matters. So like helping employees with an individual claim issue, working through strategy, focusing on, like the long-term health of the company, things that really like get pushed back when you have to go navigate an employee to where to access their HSA. And so, as I was just mentioning, so Airbo, we help an employee navigate the HR ecosystem in a really simple way. So we drive an employee, so we're almost a layer above with all of the tools that we have that drives an employee over to the correct place. And today we have over 500 companies in pretty much every major industry across the US. We work with many hard to reach populations. So really focus, in manufacturing, healthcare, mining, you name it, we work with that industry. And so, so today's agenda, so back to how you can use HR or AI to become more efficient and impactful in your role in HR. So we are going to start with just some basics of AI. So John is really an expert in this space. And so he's going to take us through a good amount of information just on like, what is AI? And then we're actually going to jump into a demo of the HR assistant that we've just released. And we're going to walk through a number of use cases that you can use in your day-to-day for how you can get more time back and become more efficient in your role. And then as Evelyn mentioned, we are going to go through a Q&A and then we'll have the raffle at the end of this call. So please make sure you're asking questions as we go along. She will be doing the live poll right at the end. Okay, so we're going to actually start off with our first quick poll, which is what is the main outcome you're hoping to get from using AI in your job? We'll just give it a few minutes here.
A lot of good answers coming in.
I know.
Improved efficiency, improved employee experience. And I like the
love it.
honest, I don't know yet. There's a lot to untap there.
It's just totally true. And maybe, I'm hoping at the end of this, those that answered, I don't know yet, will have some good ideas of how they could use it in their day to day. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll, and I believe it should show the results here. So our top three, the first one is improve efficiency. Then we've got improve employee experience. And then as John just mentioned, we have a fair number of I don't knows, which is totally reasonable. Okay. Did the results share? Oh, yes. Okay. Perfect. So just to kind of tie that poll back together. So we actually took a look at a survey or research that Gartner did, which actually links a lot to the question that we just asked. And what we found was 76% of HR leaders believe that if their organization doesn't adopt and implement AI within the next 12 to 24 months, they'll actually be lagging in organizational success compared to those that do. So AI is here. It's really important that we start using it in our day to day. And that's really like what this is telling us. And so for those HR leaders that went and answered them, kind of, related to everything that you had just answered as well, the main thing is improving efficiency. So how do we make efficiency improvements in our day to day to make our jobs easier? And then the second piece that we really looked at was reducing costs. So again, where can we help make it easier for you to spend your time on other things as well? So now that we have just some like basics on the data, we're going to go into the basics of AI. And we're going to start here because they're actually not that basic. And so, John, I'm going to, pass it over to you, but I think kind of the main piece here is that AI is not a fad, is it?
No, not at all. If you've been following any of the stock market or anything, there's a reason why NVIDIA has just gone exponential, because every big company from Google to Meta, startups are buying the infrastructure for AI because of how important it is for the future. It's pretty much like the beginning of the internet again. So if you remember the dot-com bubble, it's a whole new world is in front of us right now. So it's better to get on board with AI and understand how it's going to improve your lives and how to use it so that, we all remain relevant as we go about our day.
Yeah. So I think an easy way to say that is you're either the one that's implementing AI or you're the one that's being replaced by AI. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting everyone that's implementing it. So John, can you just go through the basic, truly, what is AI?
Yeah, AI, the term AI, the letters, in my opinion, are kind of like a buzzword. It's so abstract. Like if you ask a programmer, they'll say one thing. If you ask somebody else, they'll say something from a movies. What I like to just say, it's humans teaching computers to execute tasks. We have computers that are in your laptop that you're watching this webinar. You have computers that are in data centers that, power the whole internet. There's some form of AI all across the whole ecosystem. So I would just like to simplify it down as just humans teaching computers to do some kind of automation.
Got it. And so within AI, we often hear this term LLM. What is an LLM?
Yeah, an LLM is a large language model, and that's a flavor of AI that's based on something technical called a transformer. I won't go into that, but it's basically, think of it as just like a new version of a computer that uses all of the resources of a computer. So all the processors, the GPUs, all the techie stuff, but they trained it on all of human knowledge. So that's websites, movies, video from YouTube, books. So it has this general understanding of what humans have communicated and have captured in knowledge. And now you have the power to access that for whatever use case that you want. And for us, it's asking questions in the HR benefit space, for example.
Got it. So if someone is using general AI, it's essentially answering based on the entire knowledge of the internet. Is that the
Yeah, and
easiest way to
that sounds
explain
pretty
it?
crazy, right?
No.
I like to think of it as mentally like a web. If you ask a question, you're giving it certain keywords, and then it kind of triggers down through all that web of knowledge to kind of come back and give you an answer. So we'll get into this later, but it's like it really is, if you are really clear on what you want, you'll get something really clear and helpful out of it. But if you're really general, then you're going to not be impressed by the tool.
Got it. Okay. And so, like, I'm sure like people have heard some of these names, but can you tell us about like who's creating these AI models?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure you've heard of ChatGPT. What all these big companies are doing is buying all of the GPUs, these big processors from, say, from NVIDIA, and it's really expensive to build and train these models. It takes many months, but everybody's trying to grab one because it's basically like their version of a supercomputer that if they can get a bunch of users to use it, it's going to make them a lot of money. So ChatGPT is the most popular one. They're the one who kind of set the whole explosion of AI with their model, GPT-3. Now it's 4. Claude is another competitor. Gemini is Google's flavor. Perplexity is apparently going to be like the Google killer. Like people are switching away from just going and searching for 10 blue links to now you're getting an answer, which is like a whole paradigm shift of like thinking of a question and getting a direct answer. But that's not what we're doing here, right? We're trying to leverage the power of these general models to then make it so that it's more effective and usable for us. It's really expensive to build one of these models from scratch, and that's why we let the professionals do that.
Got it. Got it. And so, okay, so a group like, so you would essentially want to take one of these providers and then adapt it for your use case.
Yeah. There's other open source ones as well, but we won't get into that. But there are ways to kind of string these all together. But yeah, basically pick a flavor and then build on top of that.
Cool. Okay. Perfect. So that's kind of the perfect. So us at Airbo, our role in this is, so we're not one of those providers. We're not developing this deep tech, as John just said. What we're doing is we're adapting it for HR and the benefits use case and helping you all use it. And so, John, one question I have for you that I'm really curious your take on is, I've had many conversations with groups about AI, and something that I'm commonly hearing is that companies are having like their engineering team do DIY models that cover the full business. What are your just general thoughts on that, especially within the HR and benefit space?
It's very challenging. Just because somebody has like a tech background doesn't necessarily translate that they understand how to work with AI or know how to build the infrastructure. We've seen, for example, an IT team that scoped out that it was going to take about 2 years and a bunch of resources for them to even get started building one inside. And then there's a lot of other downstream issues, picking the right model, understanding prompt engineering, opening up yourself to the risk of, potentially your employees' data, if something goes wrong. Like there's a lot of things to pluses and minuses. I'm a huge fan of like, I just want you to use AI however you can, but we've been thinking about how do you make it safer and easier to deploy within an organization that gets rid of a lot of the headaches, such as like the security issues, the usability issues.
Yeah. Yeah, and I come at it from the angle. So like when I hear that, I always get instantly nervous because benefits, you have to be really careful with how you answer benefits and HR related questions. And so chances are the IT person that is creating this is not an expert in that space. And so like, do they know if it's answering correctly or not? And that's where I start to get a little bit nervous. And so I think it's important to think about like, yes, using AI is really great, but make sure that it's being adapted in a really responsible way. Is that like a reasonable way to think about it?
Exactly.
Okay. And so, yeah, so okay, so we've taken an AI agent, we've started to adapt it. How would you talk through, or could you talk us through like how an HR individual would use it in their day-to-day?
Yeah, that's a pretty broad question. There's a lot of different use cases that you can. I would say, taking a step back, you hear all the time, hey, there's, is AI going to take our jobs? Is it going to replace us? I don't think so. I believe it's going to follow how chess players use AI, right? Like, yeah, you can play a grandmaster versus a grandmaster, but if you look at how chess is done now, you have the grandmaster plus a computer. The same with like programmers. You can go and program, and a really good programmer is going to do what they can by themselves, but most of them are starting to adopt what are called co-pilots. They're AI tools that make them more efficient to kind of streamline the process so that they can output something faster. All I'm trying to say here is like the HR admin, the individual who's a domain expert, you know exactly where things are in the documentations. You have decades of experience. Now you can just take that, and with that added context, when you ask the AI tool to go generate you something, you can be super clear and get away from the general, and you'll get something even better. And now you're almost like adding a superpower to your output. So what would have taken you an hour to kind of create a document can take you a minute or 30 seconds to get a first draft. And then you can go in and work your magic to edit or go back and forth with the tool so that you can get something higher value quicker. Like that's like, for example, I'm in like product, right? Something that I have to do all the time is write product requirements documents. That takes a while if I have to start from a blank piece of paper. Now I don't. I built myself my own little AI tool so I can get a first draft based on the requirements and I'm really clear on what I need, and then I can go back and forth and I become an editor versus like the whole process from start to finish.
Yeah. So it's like we're giving you a little magic and helping you just be more efficient and effective.
Absolutely.
Okay, so so we've got AI. We all know that you are, typing something, texting something to AI, but like, how do you talk to AI?
Yeah. LLMs are basically like smart sentence generators. If you look at how they operate, it's a bunch of math in the back that kind of says, based on what you asked it to do, it's calculating the probability of each word that it spits back to you. Like over all of the information, books, and the internet, we think there's a high probability that these words in this sentence, in this order, is makes the most sense to answer your question. So if you think about it like that, you're like, oh, okay, cool. If I send it down a bad rabbit hole because I put the wrong word in, for example, I was super vague and I wanted to talk about a benefit, but I talked about unicorns and I put the word unicorn in there for no reason, there will be a high chance that it will get confused and go down a rabbit hole of like trying to figure out, why did this person talk about unicorns in this benefits question? If you think about it like that, then you're like, oh, I have to be very clear in my thinking to be able to communicate just like I would be talking to an intern. One of the best examples here is just think about AI and these tools as like a dumb intern. And they have the potential to be Einstein, but right now they really have no clue. And it's your job to kind of give them the task and the guidance, be the mentor of like, I really want you to do this in this certain way with this kind of granularity, and it'll come back and be like, here, I'll wow you. But if you're just like, go over there and come up with like some amazing campaign and I'm not going to give you any direction, a human wouldn't even know what to do with that. So I would think of it like that. Does that make sense, Kate?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people here have I think the intern example is great. A lot of people have probably dealt with an intern before. They're brand new in their job. I remember being an intern, like you just don't know much. So the more information you give that person right off the bat, the easier it is to get the output you want. Yeah. I think we've all been through those trials and tribulations. So I think that's a good way to think of it. Your AI assistant is your intern.
A lot of potential.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you can get it to where you want it to be, even if you ask it a broad question, correct?
Yeah, you can. And I always say it's like, I call it mind the gap. It's people who get let down with AI tools because there's an expectation of what they expect it to give you, but then there is like the quality of what you ask it to do. And the better you use this tool and you get familiar with it, you start to understand that the more you put into it or the more back and forths, and you have the AI tool help you kind of think through a problem, the gap of your expectation to what you asked it to do starts to close and you start to get better results and you just become more efficient. And I've seen this with myself and I've seen this with other people who have used AI tools. It's like after a few months, you're like, holy cow, I'm getting better at even communicating with my team because I see in real time when I'm not clear in my thinking and I try to tell the tool to go do something, it comes back wrong. And you're like, well, what caused it to be wrong? Like you can have one thought where it's like, oh, the tool's dumb. It's not going to help. It's not good. Or you can be like, well, was I clear enough? And then all of a sudden you're like getting these instant feedback loops all the time. And then you're like, wow, I become more persuasive in my communication in general with my team because I know what I need them to do. And I'm expressing it clearly. It's just crazy. It's almost like the best thinking helper just for
Yeah.
general thinking.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know, I mean, you've experienced me asking, like, why didn't it answer this way? And usually your response back is, oh, you asked it too general, or you wrote the word wrong, or something along those lines, where there was a pretty broad gap in like what I expected and what I asked it.
And then it's funny because then I'll show you, right? I'll be like, hey, change that word. And then all of a sudden it gives you exactly what you wanted. And you're just like, huh.
Exactly.
So the tool knew it has the potential. It's just, did you communicate it?
Yeah. And so a good way to think of that is minding the gap. We all want to jump the smaller gap. So John, can you talk us through our AI framework and how we like to think about it? I know you've kind of started to go into this a little bit, but think of it more as like a step-by-step process.
Yeah. Frameworks are just helpful because they give you a starting place. Not every question that you're going to talk to it needs to follow this framework, of course. But just like in anything, start with the end in mind. Like where do you want to go? Just like if you're going to set a goal for yourself, like what direction do you want to be? So if it's like I want to come up with a benefits campaign for mental health, that's the end point. It's like what is it? Is it, I want 5 email campaign for that to send to my employees? Is it a one pager? Is it an infographic? Is it something like be clear on what you want, like the output to be? So that's to me is like start with the end in mind. Then if you have done it before, then you can just go into like, the working back and forth. But sometimes you might not have created an infographic and you don't know where to start. That's where I'm like, okay, then ask the tool. The tool is there to work back and forth with you. I would say like, what are the 5 steps of generating an infographic? And it'll probably go through those steps of like, well, first, like create a storyboard or create some drawings or use Canva or learn how to do something. It's like, oh, okay, I can go down those rabbit holes. And so, for example, maybe it recommended you to do a storyboard. And you're like, I've never done a storyboard. What does that even mean? You could ask the tool, like dive deeper. That's number 3. It's like, can you walk me through what a storyboard would look like for this? And then all of a sudden you're like back and forth and back and forth, and 20 minutes has gone by and you've like really kind of like pushed the edges of your thinking with this tool. And then you're like, okay, I think we're in a good spot together. I think I know what I want. And I just say like, sum up what we have done. And then it comes up with like a summary of here are the steps that you should do. And you're like, fantastic. Or give me the output. Like out of all the recommendations you've given me, can you put together the copy of that infographic exactly how it should be? Using this tone, these our style guide, our brand guidelines, X, Y, and Z. And then it'll give you something. And then it's on you to be like, oh, this is good enough, or copy paste or change what you want, take what's good, like the old Bruce Lee saying, like take what's useful. And there you go. It's like you're able to work more efficiently in 20 minutes back and forth with this tool than if I just said like by the end of the day, just go do something. And you have to go kind of come up and be creative yourself. It's like, it's hard to look at a blank page and be creative, whether you're writing, whether you're doing anything. But this allows you to always have an idea generator, a first draft, and a back and forth communication so that you can just get it out and get it done faster.
Yeah. Your own assistant.
Yep.
Awesome. So we're going to now spend a good amount of time going into some use cases. So we're going to pull up the HR assistant that we've created for benefits and HR teams to use. And we're going to walk through some specific use cases covering what we just went through. But first, we want to ask if you could share one or two of the most repetitive or time-consuming tasks that you do regularly in your job. We are going to be running through some tasks, and we will likely pick one or two and run it through our HR assistant. So if you can just do that in the chat, feel free while we start going into our use cases. And before I jump into the actual use cases, I think it's important to note that the use case we're covering today is really how we can help make HR and benefit teams and people within the space more effective and efficient in their day-to-day job. And that's really what our HR assistant is built for. I think it's important to note that there can be other versions of this where AI is used more for like a navigator. So an employee asks a question like, how do I update my 401k? And it directs them over there. So there is other use cases where AI can be used. And the one we're looking at today is really helping support HR and benefits to be more effective and efficient in their job. Perfect. So I'm just going to pull these up. These are the 5 or 4, and then maybe one more 5th use case that we're going to go through. We're going to go through each of them, but real life scenarios: an employee asks a question, an employee emails a question in, you need to create something, or you need to come up with an idea for like a monthly campaign. So those are the ones that we are going to spin through. So I'm just going to move over on my screen. Okay. John, can you just confirm, can you see the HR assistant?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So I'm going to play the role of the HR person. John is going to help guide me through how I can really leverage this tool to be the most effective. So let's just imagine that I'm sitting at my desk and I have an employee that just walked in my office and asked me, how do I update my 401k?
Yeah, I mean, I would give it as much context as possible. Almost all the time, I would tell it, hey, an employee is sitting in front of me and they asked me this question, and then give the question. And then, for these tools, we always have your benefits documentation and a bunch of other insights in the back end. So like one use case that we're kind of showing here is the ability for the tool to do information lookup. So that's basically what it's doing right now. It's going through all your documentation. It's finding with the most probable answer possible, and then it will give you back something. So it's not my favorite use case. It does save a lot of time. The downsides of this use case just become the amount of information that's in the back end. PDFs, for example. It's funny because I've been doing a lot of work with onboarding a lot of clients, and some of these PDFs are pretty confusing. Like I would just say like they're confusing for a human. And then there's this expectation, for example, that, the system will be able to purely understand it. I think it's just showing us that, there could be a difference between how a benefits guide is constructed for a human, and just gives us a little bit of like, is it as clear as it can be? Is it as simple? So a lot of times this will do really well. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Kate, but it's like, it's powerful that it gives you an answer, but it's not my favorite.
Got it. Well, so basically what this did was it reviewed, so this is our demo of our HR assistant, which has documentation in the back end. So it just reviewed the documentation. So it went through everything. It grabbed the 401k updating instructions, and then it spit that back out for me. That's basically how it worked, right?
Correct.
Cool. Okay. And so what I could do is I could then just provide these instructions to the employee. So like I was able to pull it up quickly versus like flipping through the benefit guide and providing them that information. And so I could just say, yeah, so to update your 401k, you visit the benefit portal. Here is where it is. You look for the retirement 401k section, and then you click update contributions. So it can be as easy as that. It's just giving me the instructions pretty immediately versus like me having to like get up from my desk, maybe go find the PDF, or like even like go hunt for it on my computer if I'm doing something else.
But what I like here is that now that you have your first draft and you can be like, okay, this is accurate. Now you have the ability to be creative on how you want to say you want to turn this into a text message and you want it to be a short text message. I love to give the tool constraints. So for example, word count is a phenomenal way to go. Like, hey, like boil this down into less than 60 words, or you can be like, hey, give me this answer in 2 sentences. Those kind of constraints really um, show off the power of the tool because it's a little bit more rich than saying like, oh, just make this shorter or make this clearer. That's like vague and ambiguous, but you know, give it clarity and context.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a quick question that just came through from Harriet,
Yep.
which I know that we've talked about internally, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, John. So the question is the employee asking verbally, or is the question typed in? Is the answer provided in the same manner?
Yeah. So in this use case, I was pretending that I had an employee in front of me, and so I would have verbally like given them the response back. But if like in our second use case, if an employee like emails the question in, we could copy paste their question in and get a response and then copy paste it back. Did that answer the question okay, Harry? I think that was Harriet.
So.
Cool.
Yeah, I think so. And I think this is also like a direction that we could go in at some point where it's, voice activated. So that's also a cool use case.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Great
so
question.
again, this HR assistant is really for the HR benefits team member to use in their day-to-day. We do have an employee version where an employee could send a text message in and get a response based on that, which would be a little bit different of a use case.
Yeah, and I just want to say we're doing continual improvements and updates to this tool pretty much on a daily basis. So you might see some of these little funky asterisks. Those words in between those asterisks are going to be turned into bold text. You'll have links that are clickable. We're going to make this so that you could easily just copy paste this into a Word document, an email client, whatever you need to, and it just works out the gate. There's just some refinements that we're doing at the moment, but this is going to look really beautiful in the next week.
Yeah. And actually on that front, John, we got a question from Robert that's asking, do you expect the employee experience to continuously improve when AI is supporting HR? And then also, will Airbo continue enhancements if an Airbo solution is involved? So I think it just means we will continue. Yes, we will continue to enhance the Airbo solution over time. Like are always going to be doing continuous improvement.
Yeah, we have some really cool improvements and features coming down the roadmap in version 2 and 3 coming this year. This is the first version to make sure that everybody is starting to get familiar with the tool and the ability to do generative AI and make their lives easier with getting set up. But we're always taking in feedback from usage, and then we're just as quick as possible. The velocity of changes we're doing really quickly.
Yeah. So I think this is, constantly being improved on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. We've already, with the groups that have it, we've already been making improvements continuously. Okay.
Is there any more stuff you want to do on this use case, or do you want to go to another one?
I think let's go to our next one where an employee emailed a question in, and I want to send an email response back to them.
Cool.
My employee asked, I need to update my HSA contribution. Can you help? This is what they texted in, if I can spell contribution. And so I just, in this case, let's pretend I just copied and pasted it directly from my email.
Mhm.
And while we're waiting for this, I'm going to answer one other question here. Are the answers pulling from Airbo benefit portals or third-party admin tools? These answers are being pulled from the company's specific benefit documentations that we have like loaded into the backend. So if a company wants to use the Airbo AI HR assistant, which there will be a sign up towards the end of this webinar, you will then reach out, get your benefit documentation, get your employee handbooks, get your policies, like anything that you want it to be able to reference, and then it will like pull from that.
So what are your thoughts on this one, Kate?
You know, it looks good, but I feel like I'm gonna have to make some tweaks if I have to put it into an email, because it's like not really my tone. It doesn't really look like an email format.
Then this is where it's fun, because now you can just be like, can you turn this into an email? But give it something funky. Let's do something like put it in the style of Ernest Hemingway, or pick your favorite author. Let's see the creativity of this tool.
I think I spelled Jane Austen right.
I'm not familiar with Jane Austen's work too much, so you're gonna have to tell me on this one.
We'll see how entertaining this is, because it's like Pride and Prejudice and like Sense and
Okay.
Sensibility,
The
like all
classic
those
literature.
old, yeah. So we'll see how it comes. I think we'll have to edit it before sending to an employee.
Dear esteemed colleague.
This definitely looks like Jane Austen.
I hope this correspondence finds you at your finest spirits.
If anybody is a Jane Austen fan, this is exactly what it would read like. Okay, so that's probably a little too intense. So maybe I'd want to say like, love the email format, but can you make it more casual 21st century? Think that's like clear enough? Or what would you say?
What I want to point out is these tools, these LLM systems, for whatever reason, I think it's because it's trained on humans and how we talk to each other. They give better answers when you're positive and you encourage it to keep going. Like how you said, love the email format. It will start to give you worse answers over time if you're just like, this is terrible. Like, how could you come up with this? Like, you start to become a nicer person when you start using AI, because you start to get that immediate feedback of like, oh, if I'm having an off day, the tool somehow is worse. And then it's like, well, how am I asking it questions? Maybe it's almost like a mirror, if you're not having a good day with employees, So that to me is a little hack, is like the nicer you are to a tool, like an AI tool, the better it is. It's weird.
Yeah, I've noticed like when I'm short with it, it'll be short with me, but when I'm like really nice, it'll be like very nice back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always try to give it some encouragement, even if it gives you the wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's like, good try. Like, you tried hard. Other little tidbits that I've found is like, if you're doing something complicated that requires some kind of math or some reasoning or some like more complicated thinking than just like writing an email, sometimes words like walk me step by step through your thinking will give you a totally different answer, but it will hit it on the first try and be like, do something really impressive, which is crazy to me. Like,
Yeah.
it almost as if it takes its time and kind of just, instead of just rushes to get you something out the door, it's like, oh, let me just take that few extra seconds to think things through, or you could even ask it to like, before you send me this email, check it against how, and then give it like, this certain population would be receptive to it. Like, from everything that about, say you're in the manufacturing industry, like, my population of employees is, workers on the line. They, have XYZ characteristics. And then can you have a hypothetical group of my employees take a look and critique this email and give me suggestions on how it should be improved? That right there is just like, it sounds weird, but it will go do that. Um, or for example, like one that I love is, how do you write persuasive emails? Maybe you have an email that you need to write to your boss and you want to push an initiative. You if you haven't done any like persuasive writing business courses, it might be foreign to you. But now you have that exact knowledge at your fingertips if you just know to ask it. So you can be
Yeah.
like, here's my proposal that I want to get over the hill. Can you, be a persuasive writing expert and critique this for me and tell me how I can improve it? That right there is like mind blowing to be able to just see some of those words and the approach, or like walk me through it. So it really does become like, how creative can you be?
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really fun for me.
Cool. Yeah, this is fun. It's fun to like change the vibe of the email. And so you can keep tweaking it until you get it to the style that you want. I think that's fun. And so I just want to mention that Harriet said, so it sounds like it uses data from the employer combined with knowledge from the worldwide via internet. That's accurate. Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yep. And we've really put barriers on it to answer like benefit questions related to your, like the company's specific benefits.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you want me to go a little bit into the prompt engineering part, Kate, or is that too technical?
Maybe keep it like a little like high level, but I think that's helpful to hear.
Yeah, so these tools, like we said, they're very general, right? So you get pretty much a pretty generic answer. But there's this thing called uh, a master prompt or whatnot that's in the back end that kind of gives it the context of the world before you start writing into it. And we've spent countless iterations going back and forth. It's basically just like a monster Word document that is kind of like code, but in the English language. But we've pretty much built that use case of your job role so that it knows that it's supposed to be your assistant and helpful. But it also has the ability to be like, if some employee gives me something that sounds a little depressive or something, it will know to trigger you to be like, hey, this sentiment in this thing, even though you might catch it, it'll also catch it and be like, hey, you should probably like follow up with this employee's communication because
Yeah.
they sound like they need help. And it's just kind of like an extra kind of like guide. There's a lot of like these little tidbits in the back end that help you make sure that you're not missing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for our employee version, I remember we had to do a lot of testing and it was so weird to ask it the inappropriate questions to make sure that it was answering it correctly. But like we basically made sure that if someone asks the inappropriate question or says something like negative about a colleague or a boss or like something that they really should not be sending in, it says, hey, I'm sorry, I can only answer benefit questions. Like, please contact benefits if you need help. Or, so that was, you do have to think about it, but that was really, like, that's where the DIY model scares me a little bit when like those use cases are not thought through of like the employee that says, I don't feel like being here anymore. Or like how does somebody know how to get that person to the correct place without having an expert model that out, which is why like we went and hired a chief medical officer to do that,
Exactly. Like we want to get them to suicide hotline number or the text message or 911 as fast as possible. Like all these things
Exactly.
are like time to help is and get them the right thing is important. So
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I know, so we've got, we're about 15 minutes. So I know there's a couple like other use cases we want to go through, but a few things I wanted to mention. So what is the time commitment for HR to implement Airbo AI? So all that needs to happen is, and Evelyn actually just put this in the chat, is you need to sign your clients up and then we just need to reach out to you once we have a sign up on the wait list. We will get their benefit guide, we'll get their handbook, their policies, like anything that they want it to reference. And then turnaround time is fairly quick. We do have a bit of a wait list right now, but like some of them are getting turned around in about 24 hours. So pretty quick. And then we'll do like about a 15-minute call that's similar in nature to this, where we'll walk through how it works and how they can use it in their day-to-day. So time commitment is incredibly minimal. We just need the documents, about 15 minutes of their time, and then they're off to the races. One other question that we just got, John, that I'm going to pass your way is, what are the underlying LLMs that we're using behind the scenes? So is our HR assistant
technical? I like it.
Is our HR assistant trained only on static documents, or can it also index clients' live benefit websites? So like, what's the frequency of that, like updating content in our model?
Yeah, so the initial first version, we're using ChatGPT 4. We have in the pipeline our own custom proprietary bunch of open source and as well as other models that we're going to be using on the back end to increase. We've been always looking for speed and accuracy. So this is the first version that you guys are getting for to be used. And then it's not just static documents. We're doing static documents in the beginning right now, just to kind of, because we have such a large wait list, just to get people on board as fast as possible. But there is in the pipe relatively soon the ability for it to plug into websites, your SharePoint, and other different places where your information is gathered. Like, I don't want duplicate information. So if you have a microsite that you pay somebody to update continuously, I want that knowledge to be at your fingertips at all times. So we're having in the roadmap that's coming relatively soon.
Yeah. So short version of that is right now it's just reading static docs, but it will soon be able to read live websites.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So should we go through one other use case, John? I think we probably have time.
Yeah, one more. I think. Which one do you want to do? I always like the coming up with a campaign idea, and like some kind of engagement for employees is always fun.
Yeah, so okay, so Airbo, you know, as many of you probably know, we create tiles, we do campaigns. So why don't let's pretend that we are rolling out a health savings account and need some ideas of like tiles to create within a campaign. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds great.
I'm rolling out a health savings account. And I'd like 3 ideas for what I should educate employees about.
Is there anything more context, like of the pain points that you've seen? Like, you know, a lot of my employees don't even have an account, so I'm trying to find ways to get them to start saving, or like, what are your thoughts of adding more context?
My employees never, let's see.
They hate email. They never open their emails, so I can't go down the email route. I need to go through some other carrier pigeon. Something.
Don't open emails. Like, what other ideas can I use to get this info out to them? Does that work?
Yeah, let's try it. And you're not limited, of course, to 3 questions. There's times where, and Evelyn has seen me do this, where it's like, give me 25 ideas, and then I'm like, none of these are good. Go back again and again, and you just keep iterating and iterating. You're not burning through any dollars by asking it to try harder or go down different rabbit holes or whatnot. So
yeah,
never be afraid to keep asking.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Harriet, so the HR assistant is free for the employer. We would just need you to sign them up, and then we'll reach out to you to get their documentation. We'll get them set up on the HR assistant. The employee version, so the one that allows an employee to send a text message in and get an instant response based on benefits, that is our paid plan. That is more like the router version, and companies can always opt into that as well. Ooh, fun. So interactive webinars. Okay. An HSA week with info stands. That's a fun idea. Never would have thought of that. Digital screens, lunch and learns, peer champions. Oh, these are great. They're such fun
Ooh, peer
ideas
champion.
for,
I like that
yeah.
one. Go on
These are
influencer
all,
model.
these are all things that we at Airbo say like we should do when we're rolling out Airbo to hard to reach population. So this just makes me happy to see.
Perfect.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. I think Evelyn, was there any other examples that we wanted to pop in here to run it through? Sorry, I couldn't get that out there.
Oh, no, you're good. Well, there's one that I'm curious about, just if you guys think this would be a good use case, which is Harriet, who said she repeatedly answers ER eligibility questions.
Okay, so let's see. I'm thinking of how an employee would word that. And I'm assuming that means like emergency room. Is that, I just want to make sure.
That's what I figured as well. But Harriet, you can always clarify in the chat still. This is, would it be this one? This is free to the ER. Yeah.
Employee
We need to get our
eligibility
medical
questions.
officer, Dr. Dan, to work as the head of
I
ER here at
know. I
county.
know.
This is his domain. Let's get him.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
our bona fide AI.
Yeah. So
Human.
let me just, I'll come up with one. So let's see. Like, how do I know if the emergency room is covered under my health insurance? How do I tell an employee it's covered under? I gotta do it from not the employee perspective, the HR person's perspective. While we're waiting for this, there's another question, John, I want to throw your way. Are prompts and or client data used to train ChatGPT's model?
No, everything that we're doing here is not sent over to ChatGPT at all.
Yep.
No, we're not using any of this. And any PHI, PII type of information that, say you just copy pasted an email and it had a user's name or their email address or phone number, all that gets instantly scrubbed. So that we're not trying to keep anything here.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, and so this, it's reading, it put an email together that I can send.
Yeah, it's funny because as we've been onboarding a lot of clients, there have been some folks saying like, how do I put in my own like way that I write so that the tool mimics how I say things? So it's almost like you don't have to kind of go back and forth as much in how your word cadence and word choice is used. That's where it gets really funny because I think Evelyn and I are going to do like a little competition of like which one is Evelyn. We're going to take some words and compare. So there's so much potential for personalization, customization for everything here, and that's why I'm super excited. I know Evelyn's going to talk about in a second about these working sessions because it's just going to give us opportunities to kind of see what you want this tool to do, and we can like once a week for an hour or so you can bring all your questions and come in
Yeah.
and we can work on some hard stuff together and get it the way you want it.
Let me pop over there. So I know Evelyn already popped this in, but just a reminder that in the chat, if you want to sign up for the HR assistant, which we were just going through, like, please feel free to do so. But then as John was just mentioning, we are doing these like weekly sessions. And so like if you have use cases, you want to practice with us, you want to use, you know, your HR assistant, like please feel free to join. Evelyn just put a poll in about if you'd like to receive updates on those when those are happening. And then also we're really excited to announce that we are going to have an AI by HR. I don't know how you would Is that how you would say it, Evelyn, or am I saying it wrong? Slack community.
Yeah, AI times HR, AI
Times
X
HR.
HR,
Okay.
something like that. It just looks cool.
We're going to be having a Slack where we've started a Slack community where if you have Slack and you would like to join to just stay in the know, to receive updates, to kind of see some of this back and forth, these working sessions, things that we've learned, use cases, like please let us know if you'd like to join it and we can pop you into that Slack community. We're really excited about that one. Cool. Okay. And then I think a couple of other just housekeeping items, or at least one other before our prize winner is drawn. So we're going to be shooting a survey your way. This is the first or the second in this like learning series that we've been doing, where we're going through teaching you about a topic and then going through use cases. So we would just love your feedback about what you liked, you didn't like, what we can improve, what more you would like to see if there's other topics, especially within the AI space. So please let us know. And then lastly, drum roll, we need to do a raffle. So I'm going to pass it over to Evelyn to
Raffle it up. It's
yeah.
raffle time. This is my favorite part of the webinar. So I have my raffle going here on the side, just waiting for it to pick one.
And so this is everybody that asked questions.
That ask questions before or after, like during the webinar or beforehand.
Awesome.
And we have our winner, which is John Stuckey. So I'm gonna send you an email, follow up with the gift card. And thank you so much for participating in the Q&A.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate your time today. If you have any questions, like you can always reach out to us. We're always happy to chat through use cases, as we mentioned. If you have groups that are interested, or you think would be interested, make sure you sign them up for that wait list so we can get the HR assistant up and running for them. Perfect. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thursday.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.